I just might get some sleep tonight.
We drove straight through from Foxborough last night. We left around 9 o'clock and we got here about 4 this morning.
Why are you one of the Deadheads, and why are you so interested in the Grateful Dead?
Well, the music's great.
I've never followed any other band. I'm a villain, maybe.
Got 2 reasons why I cry away each lonely night. First one's named Sweet Anne, and she's my heart's delight. The second one is Prison Baby, the sheriff's on my trail. And if he catches up with me, I'll spend my life in jail. Got a wife in Chino, baby, and one in Cherokee. First one says she got my child, and they're totally black. I set out running, but I take my time. A friend of the devil is a friend of mine. I get home before daylight, just might get some sleep tonight.
I understand you are trying to prevent the marriage of Private McShane and a Miss Sung Hee.
Yeah, the heart and soul of the Grateful Dead. NBC's George Lewis looks back on the life of a man whose music first symbolized the 60s, then transcended several generations, and ultimately inspired millions.
For legions of Grateful Dead fans, Jerry Garcia was much more than a rock star. He was a musical guru, a rock and roll Pied Piper who inspired thousands of so-called deadheads to spend their lives following him and his band from one show to the next. Garcia first became interested in a career in music as a teenager growing up in San Francisco. In 1965, he formed a rock band called the Warlocks, which a year later became the Grateful Dead. With Garcia at the helm, the self-described band of misfits rocketed to fame, mesmerizing the counterculture generation with their psychedelic style and sound.
You know, we were the first weird people that a lot of those people ever saw.
But Garcia's popularity did not fade away with the 60s. In the 90s, the Grateful Dead was still a top concert draw as millions of tie-dye clad fans, both young and old, flocked to their sold-out shows. For the first half of this year, they were the second biggest touring act in the country after the Eagles.
It works because of the difference in everybody's perspective of what the music is supposed to be like. Since we all see it differently, you know, it's one of those things. But we all know it when it happens. Yeah. It's like a thing you recognize. That's what we've come to over the years.
And the Dead are now appearing in the newest of media, the computer CD-ROM.
We would all like to be able to live an uncluttered life, a simple life, a good life, you know, and like think about moving the whole human race ahead a step or a few steps. And, or half a step. Yeah, or a half a step or anything.
Towards the end of his life, the grueling tour schedules, the cigarettes, the drugs, the overeating, and the alcohol took their toll on Garcia. At times, concerts were canceled because of his poor health. Last night, Garcia was remembered for his music in candlelight vigils across the country.
We do this because of his music. He brings us together in harmony and peace.
We all loved him and we all loved his music. We all just wanted to come out here and show him a little respect.
For Jerry Garcia, it was indeed a long, strange trip. But to his fans, it was not nearly long enough. For today, George Lewis, NBC News, Los Angeles.
Dennis McNally is the longtime publicist of the Grateful Dead, a close friend of Jerry Garcia's. He's in San Francisco at our affiliate KRON-TV. Mr. McNally, good morning.
Good morning, Brian.
Deaths are always untimely. Were you aware that he had the kind of health problems, as serious as they were, that he obviously did?
Well, we fussed and worried about him for a long time. The depth of them, no. We knew in particular since 1992 when we canceled some shows, that his diabetes was right on the edge of things, and in general that he really needed to take very meticulous care of himself, which was not really his style. He was not a very meticulous person, except as to music. So that it was one of those things we sat and fidgeted about, and he always shrugged off any concern. And it was in fact, the changes that he did make were in fact perhaps too little, too late.
Yeah, we're talking about lifestyle changes.
Yes, I mean, and since 1992, he'd lost 60 pounds. He exercised pretty regularly. His smoking was at least down to, 5 or 10 filtered cigarettes instead of 3 packs of Camel Straights. In general, he watched his diet, but it was never 100%. It was he always cheated a little.
What do you think made him so special and so revered among music fans of the Grateful Dead?
Well, a couple of things. I mean, the style of the Grateful Dead was really set by him. He was authentically charismatic, but he wouldn't lead. He wouldn't dominate, so that if he led by example only. And it was that looseness that defined the audience scene and made it the compassionate and tolerant place it is, and made it the unique phenomenon that it is. In addition, he was truly committed to improvisation, to a group, interactive, not one leader, musical approach. And in that approach, there was this tremendous risk. You flew, and sometimes you crash, sometimes you fly when you start leaping off cliffs. But where in that moment between the time you take off and the time you find out whether you're succeeding or not, there's magic, there's a potential for wonderful things. And he had authentic faith in that, and the audience did too. And that's why they're still around.
He leaves behind a wife whom we married just last year and 4 daughters, one as young as 6 years old. How are they this morning?
Well, I know that I got a very lovely message from his wife last night late, thanking me for something I'd said and asking we needed to speak today. We're devastated. We're all devastated, and they are too. But we will get by.
He's not the first of the original members of the band to pass away. The remaining members, how are they viewing their future?
Well, at this point, it's one of those things where decisions don't yet have to be made, so they haven't been made. At the moment, everyone's a little more concerned with grieving and with dealing with what we have to deal with than making any plans. The Grateful Dead were never too strong on making plans in the first place. So the answer is, at this point, it's sort of in a suspended animation.
Ultimately, although you may want to put the decision off, will you allow that it's hard to imagine a Grateful Dead without Jerry Garcia?
I'll allow that, yes. I mean, whatever comes out of this, it won't be the same phenomenon, it won't be the same band. Each band member has a great deal to contribute and always has and will in the future. But yes, whatever's going to come of this, it won't be the same.
Dennis McNally, I know it's a tough time. Thank you for being with us. I appreciate it.
You're very welcome.
It's 7:41. We're back after this.
I said I'm running, but I took my time. A friend of the devil is a friend of mine. I get home before daylight, just might get some sleep tonight.
A musician, and he was bright and articulate. Good man.
Is it true? Never sold out?
That's a great sentiment. He never sold out, and that's one of the great things about him. It's one of the great things I'm going to remember.
David Frick with Rolling Stone magazine. Thanks for dropping by and remembering Jerry with us. It is 42 minutes past the hour. Next, a shrewd consumer report.
For Grateful Dead leader Jerry Garcia. The singer died yesterday, bringing thousands of Deadheads to Griffith Park to remember him. The fans did not leave when the park closed last night, and police in riot gear had to kick them out. Entrances to the park were closed to prevent more people from coming in, while officers worked to clear the area. There were no real problems, but at least one person was arrested. Sheriff's deputies in San Bernardino.
The hardest days, don't you worry anymore.
No one knows if the band will go on without Garcia. Everyone knows, even if they do, it will never be the same. Tom Foreman, ABC News, Los Angeles.
Gathered in New York's Strawberry Fields, the John Lennon Memorial in Central Park. And Deadheads also gathered in San Francisco's Haight-Ashbury district, where Garcia and the band got their start 30 years ago during the Flower Child era. Garcia suffered from health problems associated with a long history of drug use, but Garcia remained one of rock's most important and popular artists to the very end. 8 minutes now after the hour.
5 years of some groups that have grown up with similar cultures around them. But Deadheads are pretty much a nation unto themselves. But within there, a friend of mine who is a Deadhead kind of explained it very well to me. She said that one of the things that was really cool about being in the Dead audience is you're among people who, like yourself, don't feel comfortable fitting in elsewhere in the world. But you come together in a place that's like a big family where you can be who you are, and everybody's going to be cool with that.
It sort of seems like they also set up like an alternate music business of some kind. You know, they have their own merchandising, their own record company for a while.
One of the things it means is money. I mean, I oftentimes think if the whole kind of counterculture notion of what the Grateful Dead was supposed to represent was it ever hard to balance that with all the money they made, and not like in terms of merchandising and like even down to Cherry Garcia ice cream, like was there ever any tension there?
The fans were accepting of the fact that they were multimillionaires. Whereas, I mean, like in punk rock or, well, in hip hop it's okay, but in punk rock or some alternative groups, you know, there seems to be this constant sort of almost like being ashamed or struggling with the fact that you're successful. Not that, you know, not that the Dead flaunted it, but they continue to be very well.
Yeah, but you got to remember that I mean, even though a lot of people did it cheaply, you can't just go off and follow the Dead for 3 months or whatever, unless you've got some kind of capital reserve.
And trustafarian.
Well, I mean, it's, you know,
trust funds.
Yeah,
exactly. Because I mean, it's kind of hard to just lay off your job for 3 months and then come back and have everything be copacetic.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the thing that was, it goes back to that whole thing about what music represents. I mean, music these days seems to represent something that's larger than the music itself. It seems to be a microcosm of a generation, or a microcosm of how someone feels about their own life. And like the punk thing, everyone who listened to a lot of punk music in my high school thought of themselves as iconoclasts. And like most of them are now, you know, insurance brokers. And, you know, that's the most amusing part of it. You know what I mean? Yeah, you know, they're like, you know, more than what their fathers that they rebelled against were. But you know, it's like the music. It really was like one time I was asking a guy about punk music, and finally he said, "Look, man," in very exasperated tones, "it's not about the music. It's not about the music. That's not the point." And I think with the Dead, that it started with the music, and it was about the music.
Did you have much of an interaction with that larger culture at all when you were around them? Like, did you get
Well, they started coming to my shows.
Excellent.
You know what I mean? They'd come to jazz shows, and the difference was, like when I was playing with Sting, the Sting fans would come to the jazz shows and kind of sit through it and go, "What the hell is this?" And then they'd come backstage and they'd say, "Yeah, I loved you with Sting. Good night." You know, the Dead fans, who you can pretty much tell they're Deadheads when they come in. You
fairly
know, the sandals and then we're playing jazz, and all of a sudden you see people in the audience, whoa, screaming, you know, and they're like talking about the records that they bought since they heard me with Jerry and the boys. "I got all your records now, and this is the one I like, and play this song." And every now and then you hear somebody in the back of the room say, "Dog Star, dude!" You know? So it's like when they really like you with the band, they take you in.
Do you feel like it really opened them up musically? Like it turned them on to, like, say, your stuff or other stuff that they might not normally have gotten to?
It's not that it opened